Hey there guys, Rothbox here, and we're here with something a little bit different today. So, for those who don't know, I went to Pittsburgh last weekend, and I participated in the Steel City Spectacular. So what that was actually the largest cEDH event that's kind of ever been hosted as a 20k event. The invitation was going alongside of it. I was in the main event, and I decided to bring my boy. We brought Ob Nixilis. This is a nice little altar done by How It's All Mine Sam. Check it out, he's a great artist, but actual Ob Nixilis. So, for those who don't know, Ob Nixilis, 2 black and a red, 4/3 flying trample, that's important. Whenever an opponent loses exactly 1 life, you put a 1/1 counter on him and exile top card of your library. You can play it till the end of your turn. So, this deck has kind of been good, but kind of fringy for a little bit. And especially after the Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt ban, a lot of people wrote this deck off completely as it's dead, there's nothing it could do. And I do not think that's true. I think there's been some cards printed recently that add an interesting line to the deck. I think that the deck still has a lot of power, but I do think there are some major cons to the deck, and I'm going to talk about it today. So I'm going to do a little deck today, about the deck that I played in the tournament, the choices I made, and what I would maybe change going forward. But first, alright, let's start off with pros and cons of this deck. Pro. Ob Nixilis on his own is one of the best value engines in cEDH, period. I mean, he's up there with the likes of Kinnan and Thrasios. Ob Nixilis is not only a win outlet because of his combo potential, he can kill people on his own with huge commander damage, which happened a couple times this weekend. Downside being the major one, he's not in blue. He's only in black and red. Not being in blue means your actual interaction on the stack, short of removal, is very limited. And let's be real, you're going to lose a lot of games with Ob Nixilis, not because of you, because honestly, the problem is you don't have a lot of answers. You're going to lose some games where just other people who are playing blue are not playing responsibly or don't have enough, don't keep any counter spells, and then we just get blown out by turbo decks. Turbo decks are one of the deck's other weaknesses. This deck used to be a big turbo deck, and the part of the game basically still is to get Ob Nixilis out as fast as possible. The difference between this and Rogside, where oh cool, you're going to try to turbo, you're turboing Ob Nixilis out. And then from there, you're using his ability to kind of grind out value and threaten the table. Rogside is just winning on turn, 2 or 3. You're not necessarily doing that. It is possible. I've done this in tournaments. It is just very difficult to do so. We're going into much more grindy mid-range gameplay. Because of the fact that we have such a value engine, because Ob Nixilis is such a threat himself, and because we can grind out with a few little stacksy pieces to actually slow the game down, put it in our territory, our turf, it is potential. But like I said, I lost a couple rounds this weekend where on turn 3, opponent just Roth Oracle consulted, and my blue opponents just didn't have a counterspell. They just didn't keep anything up. And, I can't do anything about that. I mean, you do have a little interaction, but not very much. And so it's tough to be in those positions as the non-blue player. All right, so first off, though, I'll talk about this weekend. So the actual main event of the tournament, I didn't do particularly well. So take the deck tech with a grain of salt, take it or leave it. The rounds were pretty good. A couple of the rounds I lost. I was in seat 3 and 4 basically every round, which hurt as a turbo deck. And then a couple games I lost just because of players making very odd choices, which opened the door to someone else in front of me to win. You know how it is at cEDH. I will say the day before in a mini tournament, playing against the invitational players, so theoretically better players, I was in first place going into the last round. I was 2-0. Playing against Dio, who got 5th in the invitational, and a bunch of the really great players. So the deck has legs and is very powerful, but it is a high-rolling deck. You do well, the deck runs well, boom, game's easy, you can, crush people. Deck doesn't run optimally. I mulligan to 5 minimum every hand of the main event. You're going to struggle a little bit. You're going to spend your entire hand getting Ob out, and then if someone gets rid of Ob, you're in a rough spot. For instance, game 2, I was in seat 4, mulligan to 4, dropped Ob, and, turn 2, I believe, and then opponent decided to tutor his deck for Deadpool and play Deadpool, and not hold up interaction for the guy with Protean Hulk in his graveyard. Spoiler, we lost that game to the Protean Hulk. So, it is what it is. Alright, let's talk about the deck choices, though, and kind of where we're going from here. Hey there guys, Rothbox here, and I'm super excited to tell you that I'm once again going to be a featured content creator for Commander Sealed. If you've never been to Commander Sealed, it's a charity event up in Rochester that's run where you get to open up 14 different booster packs, and then with the pot of 4, build a competitive commander deck out of these packs and then compete against each other in a big old tournament. It's an incredibly fun event. You're supporting different charities. In fact, I am very excited to be part of Team Trans Lifeline, once again, repping my homies. If you'd like to support me and support Trans Lifeline, please go to my donation link here. Also, if you'd like to attend Commander Sealed, then you can use my code Rothbox25 at checkout in order to get $20 off your ticket to the event. With that, let's get into the video. Alright, we're going to kick this deck off where I feel like most decks go off of the land base. So the whole point of Ob is you're getting them out as fast as possible. You're running a lot of mana rocks and a lot of rituals. That's just what it is. I mean, you're running classic, so this deck is on Felwar Stone. I think you kind of want to run it. It's not... If I had to cut a card, this is probably one of the ones to cut, but like Petal, Mox Opal, Spirit Guide. Your Talisman, Mana Vault, and then... Alright, so Mox Amber, Arcane Signet, Skull Ring, Chromox, Burgi. One of the cards you may have seen here that you're not familiar with, Open the Omen Paths. So I want to talk about this card. This card is a flex card, but I have been liking it Ob for a couple reasons. So 3 mana instant, you never care about the second ability really, but add 2 mana of any color and add 2 mana of another color. Spend this mana only cast creature or enchantment spells. You have a couple spells or rituals that get you to just red mana. Like if you're like Chromox on like, you know, a red card and a colorless land, and you have, say, Poetic Ritual in hand, and this, you can still cast Ob with no black mana. It also means that a card we'll talk about later, which is extremely pip heavy that I'm trying out in this deck, is castable with just red mana. So this card is flexible. This card is a card that you can maybe take out if you don't want it, but I like this card for the potential for getting out Ob when you're a little color screwed. The fact that you can Blood Moon and then Ob through Blood Moon with just this is actually very strong. So I'm on this currently. I think this card is a optional flex card, but I do think it's better than people give it credit for. Ramp Package. Very important, arguably the most important thing in the deck because you need to get your stuff out. Now, second most important part of the deck, Enablers. So the way Ob works is, like I said, whenever an opponent loses exactly 1 life, you put the counter on Ob, you exile a card. You need these to fuel Ob to go fast, but you also need these to essentially advance your game plan. And we need these to be able to activatable on your turn, your opponent's turn, things like that. New card introduced to Final Fantasy has been a killer, Black Mage's Rod. This is just the same as all of the other, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, deal damage to an opponent. The difference being is, in case of a board wipe, in case of things go badly, you can actually turn any creature, or even Ob Nixilis himself, into the enabler, which is actually huge. For 3 mana, it's a little expensive, but that is a very valuable card in like a grindy matchup. I mean, the fact that against like a Rhystic Study deck, the fact that you can equip this, turn your guy to the enabler, and not have to cast another card to draw them a card to play an enabler, is actually more than you would think. Coruscation Mage, same kind of effect, has Offspring, so occasionally with late game we have mana, you get 2 of these effects. Cataract Parasite, one of the best cards in the deck. If you have red permanent, your opponent draws a card, deal damage to that player. It stops Rhystic Study decks, it slows them down a lot because it triggers Ob a ton and lets you just kill people sometimes without like casting spells to let them respond, which is very good, but also it's a 1-drop. You can find it really easily. It's really easy to kind of like 2 to 4 and cast in the same turn. Scrawling Crawler. This is your burst one. This one's a little scary because the idea of being is so at the beginning, same thing. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they take a damage. Same thing as Parasite, except at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. So what this does is on your upkeep, you're drawing 2 cards, which is nice, but also it means you're getting a burst of 3 extra cards and 3 extra damage for Ob Nixilis, which is actually huge. That's a huge jump and a huge card like value engine that you're getting there. Downsides your opponents are drawing a card. So it is risky, but I have found the juice to be worth the squeeze. Flame Breather, a classic one. Grape Shot. So I'm going to put this aside. We'll talk about this later because this is a important card in the deck, but I actually think it has more use than just an enabler. Bowmaster, I mean, it's just a good card, but it's also an enabler. It's not unstable amulet, cast a spell from exile, you get to do the thing. Needlehead, draw a card. Alright, the new hotness, Avalanche of Sector 7. When it's big, its powers equal to the number of artifacts your opponent controls and has menace. That is, your opponent's playing Adnals or Necro, guess what? They're in trouble. But also, whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact they control, they do 1 damage to them. Activate an ability. That's mana abilities. That is, oh, you're playing an artifact land? Damage. You're cracking a treasure? Damage. All that stuff. Damage. You're doing the Basalt Monolith combo. Cool. Bad news. Damage.
Oh, that's a lot of damage!
So this card's actually been an absolute all-star. I really think this card overperformed in the tournament. I think this card's a huge include. If you're not including this in an Ob deck, I think you're missing out. I would definitely recommend that. Next up, we're going to go to... Let's go through tutors in this deck. Same thing, you're running a lot of tutors. It's, you know, it's cEDH. You're running as many tutors as you can. So, crack it off. Goblin Engineer, it's a Rakdos deck. You are going to be on a couple combos where you need an artifact in your graveyard, whether it be an LED, whether it be a Walking Ballista. We'll talk about the combos as we get there, but card is actually quite good. Entomb, same thing. You need some stuff in your graveyard occasionally, and it's a good way to get there. Wishclaw, Demonic, Imp Seal, Beseech. Attack for Beseech. People kind of forget about this. When you have a Necro in play and you're locked under a Necro, maybe your life is really low and you can't draw any more cards and you're kind of stuck there, you can bargain away a Necro with Beseech the Mirror. It is actually extremely good, especially because even if Beseech gets countered for any reason, that bargain cost is part of the cost, which means you can get out from under Necro for free. I mean, not for free, it costs 4 mana. But it did come up more than once in this tournament where I was just at like 3 or 4 life under a Necro, and I just needed to be able to draw a card, you know, next turn. This was not a bad option. It gets you out from under Necro. Pretty good. Gamble, Vamp Tutor, Tainted Pact. Tainted Pact is a bit sketchy, but it is just a raw tutor. You are running in the lands base so that you can actually make this work. We'll talk about it. I am actually running some basic lands in this deck for Blood Moon reasons, but card is still very good. Next up, we're going to go through the just generic cards. These are the cards that you're going to run in every single black-red cEDH deck. I'm just going to throw them out there. Just because Will, Opposition Agent, One Ring, Wheel of Fortune, Final Fortune, Necro, and Ragavan. Now, I'm not really going to talk about them. You're playing cEDH. Those cards are extremely powerful. I will say you might notice that, hey, you're not on Adnaz. What is up? You're in a Rakdos deck, you're not on Adnaz? Yes. We'll see in a little bit. This deck is actually a pretty high mana curve. Quite frankly, you're running a lot of 4-drops, a lot of 3-drops. Adnaz, I honestly do not think is worth it in this deck. You do not have a Flash Enabler like Born Upon His Wind. You have Emergent Zone, but that's pretty questionable. And you don't have Valley Flood Caller. I don't think the Naz is worth it. I think Naz on an opponent's turn just kind of says, okay, like, cool, I hope I go to my turn and you don't do anything. But it's pretty risky. Like, you don't get to do it in step and then win on that in step. You have to still go to your turn or do it on your turn raw. I don't like it. I think Naz is kind of a trap, honestly, especially because people will always attack you already based on the fact that you're a black deck and you're running Necro, and like I found my life total very low a lot. Naz just feels like it's not going to get you the combo as often in this deck because of the 4-drops you're running. Alright, which case let's go to the interaction package. I think we'll talk about it. Alright, so you're going to be on as much interaction basically as you can be. Here's the thing about interaction. You kind of have to be on as much interaction as you can be because, well, you're Rakdos. You don't have counter spells. You kind of have to just have removal. And removal does do a lot in cEDH, but doesn't always do everything. So we're trying to be on as much interaction as possible, especially as cheap as possible. There are some cards that you're running, you might be like, hey, that seems like a maybe questionable choice. I'll explain when we get there. Snuff Out, classic, free removal spell, costs 4 life. Makes Naz look pretty awful, especially if you Naz into Snuff Out. Rending Volley. It was originally put in the deck for Nadu, but here's the thing. It does also kill Dranth Magistrate. It kills Thrasios. It does kill cards that cannot be countered. This one, I think, is up to meta and up to what you're expecting to find. I expected to see a lot of Thras. I expected to see a lot of Crom. Crom doesn't really come up, but Crom can block Ob, and look, sometimes you just gotta deal with it. It's okay. I think it's decent. I think it's a card if you're looking for a sign to replace. It's not a terrible option if you have another kind of direction you want to go. Bullpen, same thing. Your Ob is basically always turned on, so Ob's out. It costs 1 red mana to redirect. That's pretty good. I think it's worth playing in the deck, and I find it hard to cut just because you're really fighting for these effects, but it's tough. Shadow Skull Smashing. Technically, it's a land. I used it more than once for removal. Turns out, this deck can make a lot of mana, and if you make a lot of mana, you can occasionally just blow things up. And usually people are hesitant to counter it, because usually you can target someone's stuff and an opponent's thing. And they want that opponent's thing also gone. So you can kind of politic with it in cEDH, which isn't, super common, but it like I said, came up this weekend. Flare, it's just good. You don't have a ton of stuff to sacrifice, but you can sacrifice Ob at last-ditch effort. But you usually have a Goblin Engineer or Ragavan or some red creature around that it makes this worthwhile. Mags to the Moon. I'm actually running this over Blood Moon. for whatever reason, I found that creatures have been hard. Like, I've seen less creature removal than I have ways to deal with Blood Moon. And I was talking to comedian about this, that he actually thinks that I should be playing Magus over Blood Moon. So I tried this out. It did work. I didn't really have an issue with it being removed very often, or if they did, they want to point the removal spell at Ob Nixilis, and if they point it at Magus, that's kind of fine and kind of slowed them down enough that, and Ob Nixilis is the problem really, that I don't mind this. Deadly Rollick, classic. Fire Covenant, very good in this deck. Once again, you're paying life. Adnaz, that's why. Pyroblast, this is your counterspell. You're doing what you can. Deflecting Swat, your counterspell. Untimely Malfunction, your counterspell. Red Elemental Blast, you're running both. Counterspell. Also, I will say about Pyroblast, the nice part about this is one of the biggest downfalls to Ob Nixilis is cloning. And in the event that someone Fimiges you, Pyroblast is nice to have because you can actually target their thing. Even though he's no longer red, you can still target the permanent, which will sacrifice due to Fimige's ability. So it is worth, if you're going to have to run only one, I would run Pyroblast over Red Elemental Blast. It's technically worth it. Just remember, I mean, same thing. 1 mana, kill a thing, very important. Right, now we're going to get into the package which I ran for this event, which I don't know if necessarily is correct to do. So when Dockside got banned, one of the big things was you got rid of the treasure package. The treasure package was very good at the time, but that was Dockside and Grim Hirelings and Disciple of the Vault. It became a lot worse because you have a lot less ways to generate treasure. That being said, the Sonic Secret Lair made it so it might be worth it. So we are trying these out. I'll talk about this in a second, my experience with them. We are playing Prosper. Very good card. 4-drop, it's tough. This card is very scary. I mean, getting a treasure whenever you cast anything from exile or play anything from exile is honestly insane. With Ob, it's extremely powerful, but they're both 4-drops. You really have to be in a mid-range game for this to matter. It's tough. That being said, also having a 1-power Death Touch guy means that you can attack and get another Ob trigger pretty easily with him if you're just looking for another card to cast. That part is actually nice. I do find this card worth it. I do think this card's in my contention slot for Deadpool, which is really good. But there's only so many 4-drops you can run in a deck before you're actually just glutted at that spot, especially when your commander that you're forcing out basically every game is at that cost. So that's a very big contentious spot to be aware of. Knuckles. So, shout out, That's a Good Card podcast. I talked about this card. I think this card's actually very, very good. Double Strike, Trample, Haste, 2/4. Whenever one or more creatures you control do a combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. It's Professional Facebreaker's text, but it has Double Strike and Haste, which means him alone you're getting 2 treasures. This card is actually crazy. I have found myself in games where I essentially wanted to put a threat on the board and establish mana, but didn't want to just throw away my win con. I have Beseech the Mirror away to get a Knuckles, because that hit comes into play. All right, counter this, or I generate a crap ton of mana, and I still am actually a threat with Ob out. It's pretty good. The beginning of upkeep, control 30 treasures, it's never happening. Theoretically it could, but I mean, it's more so the other ability. Still, this came up a lot. Facebreaker, very good. All right, so here's the card in question. Woo! Shadow the Hedgehog has gotten a lot of hype. Rightfully so. Giving your spell a split second is actually insane. Here's the rub. He's black, black, red, red. That is incredibly difficult to cast in this deck. Incredibly difficult to cast in any deck. It's one of the reasons why I'm running Open the Open Paths, because you can cast him with only red mana. It's very good, but my issue being that he doesn't have Flash, he has Haste, which is cool, but it means that you have to have so much mana in order to play him and then go for the win. Otherwise, it's not quite the same, but it's almost the equivalent of playing like Defense Grid Pass. You're playing out the card going, okay, I'm going to win next turn, I hope you don't have anything, which sometimes they don't, but basically, it's really just kind of awkward. It's just, your opponent can still interact on your turn, they just can't respond to spells you cast. So it's almost like if Grand Abolisher was worse and cost 4 mana. Look, the reason I think this card's maybe okay, and I'm still working on, still testing it out, but it means you can run Knuckles and Facebreaker and Prosper and get a lot of mana. And then Shadow first, either bait out a bunch of counter magic, or let it resolve and then go for the win. That being said, he is very awkward because you can't really win with dual caster mage's lines anymore, because you have to cast your clone effect not with artifact mana, because if that has split second, you can't respond on dual caster mage. You can't Walking Ballista combo with Shadow out, because you can only make the Agha's Soul Cauldron not respondable, but they can respond to the trigger of exiling the Walking Ballista. They can respond to any other trigger. Like, there's no one card combo that just wins the game, which is why it's a bit awkward. I don't know if this card's worth it. I am still testing it. I tried it out of the tournament. I wasn't sold at the tournament, but I'm going to give it a little more, give a few more attempts. But I think this card is probably not worth it in the deck. I didn't have a great experience with it. But that being said, I know people who did, so I'm willing to give it a few more tries before I decide, you know, this could be better served as just something else entirely. And I'm running Reckless Fireweaver. I think he's the worst enabler in the deck, but it works really well with the artifact package, or if you're going with Grinding Station loops. I do think it's still good in the deck, and I think it's worth it. I do think this is better if you're running the Bolas' Citadel, Aetherflux Reservoir package. I think if you're not, it's fine. It is better than Disciple of Vault because you're not having the treasure to really sacrifice as much. I think you can get treasure here, but as you see, the treasure package is still minimal. Maybe you should play Grim Hireling. I'm not, because I didn't want another 4-drop here, and I would think that Knuckles actually is more important. The fact that you generate mana immediately as opposed to, like, you generate, I think, more mana quicker. But Grim Hireling might be better, or might be equivalent in the slot, and maybe you replace, I don't know, maybe you replace Reckless with it, maybe you replace Prosper with it. I'm not sure. It's a tough call. That's kind of the spot we're in, is that Ob has a lot of options, but it's tough to decide. All right. Next up, win cons. We're gonna go over this. I mean, so LED. You can say it's a mana rock. It's basically win con. You crack this for mana at last resort, but you're running the Grinding Station loops with Breach. Pretty simple. So here's what I was talking about that I want to talk about. So Grinding Station, Underworld Breach, LED. You're not running Thoracle, so you can't win just by exiling your whole deck and then, you know, casting spells from your graveyard. You kind of actually have to still do stuff. There's no, I mean, you can try to cast, there's a couple of combos you can cast in this. If you can get Ballista, you know, Agatha's Soul Cauldron, Walking Ballista, spoiler. That's kind of the bread and butter combo I won mostly with, because it's very easy to slip in. You can, you know, get this to hand, cast it for 0, like countering doesn't do anything, so you're pretty gold there. Very good. This is more difficult, but it's one of the reasons that I still run Grape Shot, because that's the tech. So because you can get Ob very large by just triggering, you know, getting stuff in your graveyard, casting over and going with LED loops, and I'm assuming if any enabler, you should be able to do some damage, or you can get Reckless Fireweaver and start doing damage, make Ob big. Ob's enough to kill one player, almost guaranteed. But being able to cast Grape Shot even 2 or 3 times because of Storm or the LED loops is game over. You can't really counter all of it. You can get through one Flusterstorm, but unless your opponent has every Flusterstorm or like a billion Mindbreak traps, I mean, like, Mindbreak Trap is this deck's biggest weakness, but at some point they're gonna probably Mindbreak Trap if they have it on the LED loop, so it doesn't really matter too much. But Grape Shot, even then, cast Grape Shot from there is still make Ob enormous, get a billion cards still. It's good if you're running the Grinding Station loops. If you're not running Grinding Station loops, I don't think it's worth it, but I do think this is a nice finisher for that, in that vein. And then, yeah, so the other thing is I'm still on Obi-Wan. A lot of Ob Nixilis have cut Obi-Wan. I'm still liking it, and the main reason I'm still liking it is the fact that it's a single card that basically wins the game. You do still have an enabler. That is a problem sometimes, but I kind of like that it's a single card that you can play, and you are pretty golden from there. Like, if you have Shadow, you can drop this, it can't be countered, and now any way that you trigger Ob is a game over. And sometimes if you something that can trigger, like, not cast a non-creature spell, and they try to interact with Ob on this deck, you can just cast another non-creature spell. Like, this card is very good. It's just very telegraphed. It's 5 mana, you can't beseech for it, you tutor for it, it's a little awkward. But it's a card I don't mind exiling and just saying, okay, cool, that's not the gameplay in this game. But I mean, if you're going through, for instance, LED loops, like, being able to just go, okay, play Obi-Wan. If you've not countered the LED loops, Obi-Wan, do it again. Like, this does just win the game. And sometimes the part is you just need a way to win the game. And I've had games also where opponents, like, basically the way Ob works is, you're either going to sneak a win through, kill someone with commander damage, which happens a lot, or you're going to wait for the people, you know, someone try to go off, burn everything they have, and you go, all right, Obi-Wan. And if your opponent can't counter it, that's just it. Game. Single card. So, I do think it's worth it. I think it's... If you're looking for other win cons, like I said, this could be the Bolas' Citadel, Aetherflux Reservoir, Sensei's Top package. There's a couple of packages to be running. I do like it. I get why people don't. I think it's still worth it. I think also because I'm running the treasure package, I have enough mana that the 5 is not as detrimental as it could be, which is one thing. It's one of the cards that actually said Shadow can cast with split second that does actually just basically lock the game, depending on what else is in your... I mean, yes, there are still things that can interact with it, but it's pretty good from there. So I do like this one quite a bit. All right, and next up, we're going to go with some tech cards. Conqueror's Flail, Lightning Greaves. This is my protection package. Conqueror's Flail is pretty standard. I think this card's pretty good in the deck, just being able to, you know, on your turn, be able to do whatever you need to do. It still lets abilities go through as the downside, but I think I like it better than stuff like Defense Security, because I hate leaving that up for opponents, and they don't want to have another effect in Rakdos. Lightning Greaves is actually quintessential for this deck. Giving Shroud to Ob Nixilis is so important. Ob Nixilis being removed or Gilded Draked, the game is such a bad spot at that point that this is so a good card in order to keep you in it. Artist Talent. Honestly, it's just been a very good card for just digging through your deck. Casting on-creature spell, discard a card, draw a card. When you're going through some turns where you're just casting rituals and you're just like, I just need to churn through my deck and find things. That card's actually very good at it, especially you can play it as a 2-drop and just kind of like chill. Like this is one of the cards you can play as a 2-drop and hold up interaction for someone else's turn, and then on your turn, really go for it. I do like this card quite a bit. Weight of Spires. My friends make fun of me. This is my tech card of choice. I like this better than Lightning Bolt, which may be very controversial, but Weight of Spires, as an instant speed for 1 red mana, deals damage to the target creature equal to the number of non-basic lands that creature's controller controls. This card deals with actually some big threats that Lightning Bolt will not hit. You have a 4 toughness guy, this can kill it. This can kill Lumra quite easily, which, yes, they can cast that game, but getting Lumra off the field sometimes is very important. I mean, no, it doesn't deal with everything. If you have a commander who turbos treasure out, Bolt's still not killing it regardless, but this card actually has potential to do things. And the fact that it's a 1 red mana for that kind of effect, very rarely bolting someone in the face. I guess theoretically you could have it if you're doing Grinding Station loops, but that's why I have Grape Shot. I'd rather Grape Shot them anyway, because you can't just counter that. It's just getting through regardless. I have been liking this card quite a bit. I think this card is actually quite powerful. I think it is cuttable. I think that's why it's in a flex spot. But considering how much interaction I want to run in this deck, I have been liking Way of the Spires actually a lot more than I think I was going to originally. And Torpor Orb. Turns out, you're not running any ETBs in this deck, basically. You're basically running Goblin Engineer, and that's kind of it. And funny enough, Goblin Engineer, if this isn't in play, can go get this in the graveyard to put into play. Turns off Thassa's Oracle. That's kind of all you need to know. But I saw a couple decks this week that were just really hurt by this card. Turns out, turning off ETBs is pretty good, actually. I was playing against a Celeste deck where the deck just couldn't Celeste. Turns out pretty good. I mean, it's definitely not going to solve every problem. Like, it doesn't get around Protean Hulk or things that die. It doesn't get around Thrasios or Kinnan. But I think this card is worth teching in because this deck loses very badly to Thassa's Oracle. It just cannot deal with a Thorkel coming down because besides like a Pyroblast, you don't really have a way to interact with it. Killing doesn't do anything. This is a way to stop it proactively that they have to deal with, and then hopefully someone else can back you up to stop the Thoracle. I think this card's been worth it. I've been liking it. I've been liking it quite a bit. Alright, lastly, we're going to go through the land base. Very simple. Black-red lands, Luxury Suite, Graven Cairn, Silver Spring, Takenuma, Badlands, Pathway, Blood Crypt, Command Tower, Blaze Merge, Urborg, Gemstone Caverns. Classic Rakdos lands. You need the colors you can get. Pretty important. Fetches. I'm actually only on 5 fetches. I'm on all the black fetches plus Arid Mesa. Let's see, you're paying a lot of life in this deck, actually. You're actually spending a lot of life. And because you're only running a couple fetchable lands, I actually don't feel the need to run 8. Which may be a weird take, but I actually find that you only need 5 or 6 in a deck, and you can go up to 6. But I wouldn't run all 8. Because you're not running any basic mountains. Once you get Badlands and Blood Crypt, you're out of red lands. You're not running any basic mountains. You don't need them. You have Blood Moon. You don't need that effect. It just becomes very awkward. So I found that having the black ones so that you can get Necros and Beseeches easier is actually more important. And I think if you just fetch smartly, it shouldn't be an issue. Now, that being said, I think it's also because there's some lands I want to fit in here. So once again, you're running 2 basics. Snow Swamp, Basic Swamp. Thank you to Prime Speaker Florian for the beautiful altar. Very pretty, but you're running 2 of these. I'm running Cabal Pit and Barbarian Ring. And the reason being, interaction. I need as much interaction as I possibly can because I'm not blue. I need the ability to kill Kinnans with a land. That is actually very big. Mountain Doom is a pinger. It costs you a life, which is rough, but it is in fact a pinger land for a couple mana, which is not ideal, but it does come into play if you need exactly 1 trigger. Like I said, if you somehow land all the way 1 and you're like, I have no cards in hand, but to have this land up, this does work. This will kill them, which is why it's in the deck. Also, the fact that the second ability has come up before you can sacrifice a 1 ring, not ideal, but it can happen. Last up, we have the colorless lands. We're only on a couple because they will absolutely screw your day up, but they're essential. City Traders and Ancient Tomb, you have to run these cards on the deck. You need that 2 colorless land for Ob, for Mana Rocks, all that stuff. You need these cards. There's Saga Classic, Emergence Classic, Homeward Path. Look, I know a lot of decks do not run this in cEDH, and I get it. This deck is crippled, just dead in the water against Gilded Drake, period. You need this card to deal with Gilded Drake. And yes, sometimes you won't see it, but sometimes you'll find enough cards that it'll be okay. I think this card is worth running entirely for Gilded Drake. And if Gilded Drake just falls out of the meta, you can cut this card from the deck, replace it with something else. But for now, I have felt the need to run it. Alright, I mean, that's most of the deck right now. Like I said, that's where I was. That's the decisions I was making for the weekend. I think this deck was quite powerful. Like I said, the seats didn't help. And this weekend, like, some of the draws I made, they could have been wins given more time. I mean, it's just how it is. You know what it is. One of the rounds we went to draw on is I basically had the win guaranteed, but we were at 30 seconds left, and they had enough to at least, like, slow me down so I couldn't win in the 30 seconds. It is what it is. And it's cEDH, you play for the draw, so I don't, I don't begrudge them. But that being said, like I said, I think Ob Nixilis is a lot better than people give it credit for. I think it's still powerful. I do not think it's the best deck in the format. I don't think it's even necessarily tier 1. But I do think it's a deck you can bring to a tournament and feel pretty comfortable with the games. That being said, get experience with this deck. Play a lot with this deck. Attacking is important. Remember it. Kill people. Kill the blue player before you try to go off. If you're trying to win on your turn, and you know opponent has a bunch of cash spells in hand or they had a Ristic Study, and you can kill them with Ob Nixilis, kill them, and then go for the win. Do not just jam into this. It will not work. Alright, that being said, I really appreciate it. This is a different video for me. I just want to do something a little different, a little interesting, I think. And talk about my experience at the Steel City Spectacular. It was a super fun event. I was there on my birthday, which was very cool. Like I said, the actual tournament didn't go great for me, but I did get to play with a bunch of friends, and was worth it, would do again. Let me know if you want to see more deck techs in the future on this channel. I don't do it a ton, but we've been bringing some interesting cEDH decks, and I have a couple other ones, so if you want to see something a little more fringy cEDH, I'd be happy to do another deck tech. But yeah, everyone stay safe, and in the meantime, peace.